Okay, let's set the scene. Imagine St. Petersburg, March 13th, 1881. It's this crisp winter afternoon. You've got the Tsar Alexander II in his supposedly bulletproof carriage.
Right, supposedly being the key word there.
Exactly. And then boom, 2 bombs, just like that. Explosions that didn't just shake the city, they basically led straight to the Tsar's assassination.
A really brutal end.
So today, we want to really dive into this huge paradox surrounding Alexander II. People called him the Tsar Liberator, yet he ends up killed by revolutionaries.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to explore how that specific event, his death, kind of sent Russia spinning down this totally unforeseen, violent path, really way into the 20th century.
Yeah, it's one of those moments in history where everything just collides. You know, irony, tragedy, huge consequences. This Tsar who genuinely brought about massive changes.
Especially freeing the serfs.
Exactly. That's the big one.
Yeah.
But his actions, well, they unintentionally paved the way for his own end. And that completely changed Russia's direction. Forever, really.
So, take us back. Alexander II comes to power, and the Russian Empire isn't exactly thriving, right? Especially after the Crimean War.
Oh, not at all. It was a disaster. The empire was facing total financial collapse. The military was ancient. The whole system was creaking. It was a deep, deep crisis.
So reform wasn't just a nice idea. It was essential.
Absolutely essential. Alexander knew he had to modernize. But, and this is important, it wasn't really about liberal ideals for him. It was more about survival, preserving the autocracy,
So the famous Emancipation Edict of 1861, freeing the serfs, that fits into this survival strategy.
Perfectly. You've got 23 million people, nearly 40% of the population, suddenly freed. His logic, he actually said it, was basically, it's better to abolish serfdom from above than wait until it starts abolishing itself from below.
Smart politics, maybe. But you mentioned it wasn't perfect. And this is where it gets really interesting for you, the listener. These details, like the redemption payments and this mirror system, how do they mess things up?
Well, mess things up is one way to put it. It was deeply flawed. Okay, so you're free. Great. But now you owe the state crippling amounts of money for the land you got payments stretched over 49 years.
49 years. Wow.
Yeah. And you were often stuck in this collective village commune, the Mir, which controlled the land and limited your ability to, say, move or try something new. So instead of gratitude, you got massive disappointment. Hundreds of riots, actually.
So even with other big reforms like courts, local government, the military, the core problem remained.
The core problem and the core reality. Alexander II was still an absolute autocrat. His reforms were meant to strengthen his rule, but they kind of cracked open the door. Radical ideas started spreading. People expected more. It created this revolution of rising expectations, as historians put it. The very changes meant to stabilize things actually fueled more discontent.
Okay, so things are simmering. People want more change than they're getting. What happens then? Does it just boil over?
That's exactly what starts to happen. In the 1870s, there was this movement, the Narodniks, who tried peaceful means. They went to the people, tried to educate the peasants.
How did that go?
Terribly. The peasants often didn't trust them, sometimes even turned them over to the police and the state. Brutal repression, arrests, exile.
So peaceful methods weren't working?
Not at all. And this failure led to a major split in the revolutionary groups. A new faction emerged, much more radical. Narodnaya Volia, the People's Will.
And their approach was different.
Completely different. They basically gave up on peaceful propaganda. Their idea was propaganda by the deed, political terrorism, needing to assassinate high-ranking officials, especially the Tsar himself. They believed killing the Tsar would shock the system, destabilize the state, and maybe, just maybe, spark a huge popular uprising.
They sound pretty determined, and they really went after Alexander, didn't they? Several failed attempts before 1881.
Oh, relentlessly. Plots involving trains, even bombing the Winter Palace itself. So for March 13th, 1881, they had this intricate plan. Plan A was a mine under a street the Tsar often used, disguised by a fake cheese shop front.
A cheese shop? Seriously?
Seriously. And they had a Plan B, a team of 4 bombers stationed along his backup route near the Catherine Canal, just in case, with handheld bombs made by their expert, Nikolai Kibalchich.
And that day, March 13th, the irony you mentioned earlier, what was happening behind the scenes?
It's almost unbelievable. That very morning, just hours before the attack, Alexander II signed this document. It's called the Loris-Melikov Constitution. It was a proposal, a tentative step towards a kind of representative government, an advisory body, a huge potential shift for Russia.
Wow. So he's potentially opening the door to more reform, right as they're planning to kill him.
Exactly. But fate, or maybe just traffic, intervened. He took an unexpected route, avoiding the street with the mine.
So the main plot failed.
It did. But Sofia Perovskaya, one of the key organizers, an aristocrat actually, she was watching. She saw the Tsar's carriage take the other route, heading towards the canal. And she calmly gave the signal. Blew her nose, apparently.
A handkerchief signal.
Yeah. And the first bomber, Nikolai Ryzhikov, stepped out and threw his bomb.
Hit the carriage?
It did. Damaged it heavily, wounded a Cossack guard and a young boy nearby. But the Tsar, inside this supposedly bulletproof coach, he was initially okay, shaken, but alive.
And then came the fatal mistake.
The fatal mistake. His guards urged him to stay inside, to get away. But Alexander insisted on getting out. He wanted to see the damage, see the wounded, maybe even confront the captured Ryzhikov.
He stepped out.
And in that instant, the second bomber, Ignacy Vernabiecki, saw his chance. He rushed forward and threw his bomb right at the Tsar's feet.
Oh my God.
Yeah, a devastating explosion. It killed Tridoviecki, instantly and mortally wounded the Tsar. His legs were just shattered. There was a third bomber ready, but he didn't need to act.
So they rushed him back to the Winter Palace.
Back to the palace, yes, to his study. And the tragic irony continues. It was the same room where 20 years earlier, he had signed the Emancipation Edict freeing the serfs. He died there, surrounded by his family, including his son and heir, Alexander III, who saw the whole horrific scene.
What a traumatic thing to witness. And what did that mean for Russia? What happened next?
Well, Alexander III was traumatized, yes, and also deeply influenced by his ultra-conservative tutor, Konstantin Povedantsev, one of his first acts. He tore up that Loris Melikov proposal his father had signed just hours before dying.
So any chance of gradual reform was just gone.
Gone, snuffed out. Instead, in April 1881, Alexander III issued his manifesto on unshakable autocracy. It slammed the door shut on his father's great reforms and kicked off an era of intense reaction. Counter-reforms.
What did that look like?
Think police state. Creation of the Okhrana, the secret police. Heavy censorship came back. Universities lost their autonomy, and they created these officials called land captains nobles with basically absolute power over peasants in the countryside, systematically rolling back his father's changes.
And the revolutionaries, the people's will, the ones who threw the bombs, the Pervo-Martopsi.
They were rounded up quickly, partly thanks to Ryzhikov, the first bomber who talked under interrogation. 5 of the main conspirators, including the organizers Zelyabov and Perovskaya, the bomb maker Kibalchich, and Ryzhikov himself, were publicly hanged in April 1881. Perovskaya was the first woman executed for a political crime in Russia.
So the assassination, it seems like it was a tactical win, but a massive strategic blunder for them.
Absolutely. A catastrophe, really, for the revolutionary cause. It didn't spark the popular uprising they dreamed of. Most peasants were actually horrified by the Tsar's murder. The people's will as an organization was crushed within about a year.
So instead of pushing Russia towards democracy or whatever they wanted,
they pushed it in the exact opposite direction, towards the most repressive, reactionary regime Russia had seen in decades. It shut down almost all paths for peaceful change, which, ironically, only radicalized the next generation of revolutionaries even further.
And you can draw a line from this, can't you? Even to Lenin, his own brother was executed a few years later for plotting against Alexander III.
It's all connected. That cycle of violence and repression just intensified, which really leaves you with a final thought to chew on.
Yeah.
The people's will assassinated Alexander II, hoping to ignite a revolution, right? To bring about radical change immediately. But did they, in their desperate act, actually destroy Russia's best, maybe only chance for a more gradual, peaceful evolution towards something like a constitutional monarchy? Did they, ironically, pave the way for the much bloodier, much more total revolution that came later?